esteemed group, Kenny.
Yes.
Where are you from?
I'm from, well, I'm not going to tell you where I'm from. I will tell you where I'm at school, what schools I'm associated with. I'm one of the board members at Kirkland Elementary School in Kirkland, Arizona. And I also work for Skull Valley School as a bus driver. And then here recently, I was elected Rural Alliance president, and I'm gladly serving all of you and hoping to make this alliance stronger and to provide more information and networking for all of you. It's certainly a high goal for me, but I'm confident that all of us can achieve a really good excellence in all of this. And I'm just here to help serve you and make sure all of our rural schools are heard.
We're good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay, it looks good. Yeah, I can see there's a little thing on here that says that we're live. So good evening, and thank you for everybody being here. I'm so glad that you're here, and we have some questions and discussion time. We're going to take about an hour. So we have 4 topics, and we'll spend about 10 minutes on each one of those topics, with the questions and some discussions. And then towards the end, Chris Cotterman is going to share some information with us about advocating for communication online. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Chris has to share about that. So let's go ahead and get started on our meeting and start with the first portion of ours, which our meeting, which is talking about students, staff, and health and safety. You're all welcome to have some input and talk about this as we get to going through this discussion part of it. But here's the first question. Have you returned to in-person instruction for all the students? And this is a poll question, and there's be a yes or no answer to it. And Tracy should be putting that up for us.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask a couple of my colleagues to log out of the ASBA account so that I can launch those polls. Nikki and Julie, if you could log out of the ASBA account and log in with your own, then I can launch the polling. Well,
it's always wonderful when the technology works or it doesn't.
I love technology. We thought we'd use polling because with a group of people this size, it is a helpful way to capture the information without everyone trying to jump on at one time. So we'll see if we can get this working, and if not, we'll just ask you to do a show of hands.
Yeah.
Let's do a show of hands for right now until I can get the polling working.
Okay.
Kenny, do you want to ask the question again?
Okay, so the question is, have you returned to in-person instruction for all students? Yes or no? And you should be getting a poll.
No, just raise your hands. I can't do the
Okay,
poll.
okay. So if you've returned, just show me your hand, raise your hand up and show me that so we can get a count of how many of you are in person. There's one, Maryland.
With distance learning for those who want it.
Okay. Let's see. if you have returned to in-person instruction, what process or procedures are in place to lower the possibility of the virus being transmitted? So this is what we're discussing at this point. So I'm gonna open it up to whoever would like to talk. Do I need to, if you need for me to repeat the question, I will certainly be glad to do that.
Be sure to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If you have returned to full in-person instructions, what process or procedures are in place to lower the possibility of the virus being transmitted? And there were several of you that did show a yes answer.
Karen, it looks like Karen McClellan would like to share.
Yeah, we opened up today. We gave students the option to come to school in person or stay home and have live streaming from their teachers. And we've got about 49% of our elementary students and 56% of our high school students back. And since Yavapai County is one of those good open hybrid, that eliminates our trying to figure out a hybrid of 50% of the students here one day or the next. So got those that are in school, since it's only about 50% of our student body, and we're lucky to have large classroom spaces. We've done a lot of things on the social distancing. A note from the superintendent, the kids all wore masks today. We added a couple extra lunch hours, rounded up all the outdoor furniture we had, to provide options. But since the teachers are live streaming, the students really have to be inside in the classroom. We can't switch to outdoor instruction during normal class times. We've provided as much so when the kids at lunchtime can be outside eating distance from each other. But the teachers are live streaming to the 50% of the kids and teaching to the 50% in the classroom. So that's going to be interesting over the next week as the teachers adjust to that technology, because that's something none of us have done before, to try to make sure we're not skipping on to either the in-person kids or the at-home kids.
So Karen, most of the kids are there, you're saying that you have a percentage of the kids at school and
Yeah.
you're still live streaming as well?
Yeah, when we opened on the 5th of August, the teachers were in their classrooms live streaming lessons online. So they're still doing that. It just now they have 50% of their kids at home online and 50% approximately, different groups, ages are different, in the classroom. So we will continue doing that probably for the semester at the end, with that option of live streaming from home.
If for the students that are in school, is there any special procedures or processes that your schools are doing?
No, we've got air conditioning running outside, recirculating air, all the hours the kids are there. We have classrooms that have windows and doors. So, and we have a lot of shade around the building, so teachers can open for, ventilation, can open the doors. We have, additional cleaning crew at nighttime, sort of going through and really deep cleaning classrooms, things they, wouldn't normally do, and the same thing with the lunch staff in between lunch hours.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of outdoor space, so when the students, if they, like the high school, as students go from class to class, they can go mostly from one class to another outside. So they don't have to pass anybody in the halls. The kids are moving or may all be in motion at the same time, but some are in motion inside, some are in motion outside. So they don't have to, like that picture we also saw that school in Georgia, they don't have to rub shoulders in the hallways. They're going from outside, using the outside doors of the classrooms to go from classroom to classroom.
So there's a one-way path at your school?
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to share?
Kenny, I was just going to share about a conversation that I had with an architecture firm the other day, and they're doing something that they call journey mapping. And that is, they do an analysis of how people travel through school buildings and then create those kind of one-way paths. And they also identify what the high touch areas are. And so this firm offers that service. But it sounds also like something that people who are really familiar with your school campus could probably do as well to, limit the amount of two-way contact that people are having.
I know that Skull Valley is in person, and my school, and Michelle Perry's on this call with us, and I'll let Michelle, if she wants to share more about it. But in Skull Valley, they're doing extra cleaning as a precaution to keep the kids from contacting surfaces that may have a virus. So we're just doing extra cleaning over here.
Did anybody use a firm to go in and do a deep dive before they brought kids back? The
Wow.
cleaning?
We used our own staff. We did that.
We did also. We're still online right now.
But everybody probably has some kids in school, right?
Well, we have about 50 right now that are going into the on-site schooling. And we used our own staff to clean, but we haven't had any problems with it. Like our high school has, it's the wings and it's got doors at either end. So we've established already a one-way path all the way through the high school. And actually all of our schools actually do that except for our middle school. But because of the way the doors are situated, they can pretty much do a one-way path through that also.
Very,
Whatever you can find on Harvest Chicken and.
let's move on to the next question, the poll question. If you have not returned, are you requiring that all 3 health benchmarks set by the state be met prior to returning to in-person instructions? Raise your hand for a yes. I see, are you raising your hand too, Linda? I see 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can I ask a question related to that? Are you in regular good contact with your county health department? And what does that look like?
We are constantly, our superintendent talks to them all the time. As a matter of fact, we had thought we met the benchmarks, and then we found out after we had decided to open at the end of the month, they came out with some new statistics, so we had to rechange again.
I think that's why I was a little undecided, because yes, we're guided by the benchmarks, but we've made the decision that we're going to be online only for most children until the first quarter is over, and then we're going to reevaluate. And I think we will definitely give the metrics the highest consideration, but we're talking to the health department and we're looking at all options.
Okay, that's great. Anyone else?
We have kind of a weird situation since we're close to the Utah border, and the closest town to us is in Utah. So we've kind of combined the data from that community, which is where we shop and everything, with the county data we get from Flagstaff. So when we opened school, we were in the green, but we are watching it carefully.
So, Marilyn, are some of the students coming from Utah into your school in Arizona?
No, but we do have, our district is quite spread out, and when it does include the Paiute Reservation. And that's located a little bit out of town.
Mhm.
And so that creates another situation because they have had active cases there.
Okay. So you're trying to balance the numbers between Arizona and Utah for your school?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
The closest hospital, the doctor's offices that most people go to are actually across the border.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes,
I see a comment here from Tim that says that they are meeting every Tuesday with the health department. Unfortunately, the data is 2 weeks behind and there have been issues with it being correct. And then there's a comment about when Dr. Chris with Department of Health Services said any test results faxed in are not included. That was boiled down to almost 25% of the test results, and those are coming from rural areas. So there's an issue there, I guess, in terms of timeliness that you're dealing with there, Tim.
so in Arizona, where the rural schools are not getting minute by minute up to date on the information, the data that is helping to close the gap on the metrics.
Yeah, those metrics that you can look up, Kenny, on the Department of Health, they are 2 weeks lagging. So the problem that we have is, first of all that information is 2 weeks behind. Second of all, we found out about that faxing in, which comes from all of the remote areas, which, you know, that's where most of your rural districts are going to be. And then the third problem that we had was, you know, when there's a spike in different areas, like we've got a Department of, detention center or prison over there by Douglas in our county, and they just tested all of those, and they had a spike of 90 some cases. So that hits, and then we're still running into problems. I had to send a worker last Tuesday in order to get tested, even though her sister just tested positive 3 days earlier, and she had all the symptoms. It took an appointment over the internet, and then another appointment 28 hours later to finally be able to go up and get a test, and we are still waiting for the results right now. So we still have 5, 6, 7 day lags in information, along with the fact that you can't just get tested immediately. So our county has now scheduled out in Cochise, they're going to have open drive-up testing, which will help us, I think, in our area. But that 2 week lag when you're looking at the state results, just from what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Is anybody else experiencing something like that in their county or their community?
Well, I think most people probably know by now, but the Hayden Winkleman School District lost a teacher a couple months ago now. And it certainly ratcheted up the anxiety that our teachers felt. You know, I think they were watching the news and feeling some of that, but it just brought it really home. Because I think that's like within 20 miles or something, maybe 30 miles of where our district is. So that was kind of scary. And as it happens, her brother also died. This teacher's brother also died, who is not a teacher. But very, very sad. And everybody is certainly on edge about it.
I'm sure. Thank you for that, Linda. Thank you. Let's move on to another poll question. Let's see. When you return, will masks be required for students, educators, and all others on your campus?
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Can you repeat that question, Kenny?
Sure. When you return, will masks be required for students, educators, and others on campus? Folks that just come in to visit. Okay, yes, yes.
Yeah, well, the governor said so, and we've got a city ordinance where I am.
Interestingly enough, Pinal County voted not to require masks, but Pima did, and we're in Pinal, but yes, we're following the governor's guidance.
Yeah, our county didn't vote on it, but the school is located inside the incorporated area of Sedona, and they did pass a mask ordinance, so we're following. We always said we would follow what the city said, and then the.
Okay. Let me ask another poll question. Do you have plans to place in place to transition back and forth between in-school and distant learning? That's a really good question. And I think that's something that all of us, Linda, I know that your school is holding off a little bit and waiting. Are there other schools that are still waiting?
Yep.
And do you have a plan? So when you do open and you find out that you have a problem and then you have to close, are you all, how's that? Are you prepared with a plan to do switch back and forth?
We're planning one of our hybrids. We're a 4-day school. So our kids will be going 2 days off and 2 days on tentatively. I mean, that's not set in stone, but that's one of the hybrid plans that we're talking about. So they will be doing online for 2 days and then actually in school for 2 days. When we go back, if we go back, we got a meeting on September the 8th where we will decide what steps we want to take from now.
Okay. Tracy, did you have some questions that have been coming to you through the chat you wanted to share?
There's some good comments that are related to instruction, and I think we're going to get to some of those topics a little further along in your question, so I'll save it for that, if that's all right.
Okay, that's fine. Let's move on to the other topic, which is family engagement and feedback. So here's the question. Did you do a community survey about distance learning needs and preferences prior to the start of your school year? Yes, yes, yes. Great. Great. Thank you. Yes. All right. We got a lot of yeses. If you did a community service and have used it to drive decision making about reopening, please share about the information you received from those folks and the impact on your decisions.
Well, at first 60% of our parents wanted to bring their children back, send their children back to school. And that affected the board's initial decision making. But then a later poll and additional information found that 60% of their parents wanted to keep their children at home. So eventually we went with the doing online for the first quarter. That was the big picture.
And one of the reasons Oracle had to go with online is we couldn't get the supplies to turn around and make the school safe. They weren't available. Like we still have a due date of additional laptops for December of this year.
When you talk about supplies, Gary, what are you talking about specifically? Your cleaning supplies or?
Yeah.
Washing stations. We are going to remodel the bathroom so they're touchless. We've done work
Chromebooks.
on the HVAC system, PPEs, everything. I mean, it's very tough out there to turn around and just order things and expect them to come in.
So some of these things we're not going to get till December, you know, Chromebooks and some of the other things were like carts to take the food to the classrooms.
Picnic bench.
Oh, and so instead of our usual stuff the bus this year, where we collect mostly paper and pencils, that kind of thing, we've asked for stuff like sanitizer and masks and that kind of thing from our community.
Great idea.
All right, are any of the schools using a local professional cleaning supply company that has a just off the top of my head, Hilliard supplies?
Yeah, we use Hilliard.
Okay.
We use Hilliard, but part of it, yeah. We did a lot of things before this happened on changes on procedures for cleaning and things when we switched to Hilliard, because they came up and did a whole bunch of training with the staff. So we've started when we use those, and we haven't heard of any reported problems for supplies and things. We've gotten some donations on things. You know, we've had a local grocery store give us 2,500 masks. We had a community organization give us money enough to install water bottle fillers instead of regular water fountains. And they're in the process right now of retrofitting all of those. So we were, lucky on that category. So
I'm going to pop in with a question from Donna. And she asked, how many of you in your district have a nurse in each of your schools or health assistant?
Oh.
Health aides.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2.
A few. No nurse in NACO, I see that. Okay, so who's handling those kinds of things when a student has symptoms of COVID, or even checking students when they come onto campus to make sure that they're symptom-free?
And that's where my question came from, Tracy, because at one of the county school superintendent meetings, the county was there and they were going over the procedures of what to do if you suspect a student or a staff member might have signs or symptoms of the virus. And she said to them, well, you need to send your nurse to evaluate. Mojave County is full of rural schools. And one of the superintendents said, I don't have a nurse. And she said, well, send your health aide. And he said, I don't have a health aide.
Yeah.
And she said, well, do you have anybody that knows anything about health? And he said, my daughter just passed her CNA exam. I mean,
we have bus monitors that are checking students' temperatures before they get on the bus. These are just, I don't mean just, but these are people who don't have any health training, but they're going to be issuing, taking temperatures of the students. And then for students who report to the school without being transported on bus, they will be checked at that time by some other monitors at the school. But we also just have a health aide. We don't have a nurse, and we'll do the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Those of you who have started, we debated around the board at our last meeting about doing the daily screeners. I am very hesitant as the superintendent. I'm very small, so I'm hesitant to do temperature checks on all of our 130 children. I'm so afraid of doing it inaccurately. So are any of you taking the daily temperature checks? My board really wants us to, but I'm afraid that I can commit to that. And the day that we can't put an aide on the bus and that doesn't work, and CDC came out and said they don't recommend it. So I'm just curious how your daily health temperature checks, daily screening, and how you document. Our board really wanted us to document, but the realistic of asking a teacher to do that among all of this, I know what a teacher's going to do. They're just going to get the spreadsheet and say, "Oh wait, oops, I forgot," and nope, nobody had symptoms, because we know when a child looks ill.
Shanna, all we're doing is we're recording anybody that comes in with a temperature. This is Tim from NACO. Anybody who comes in with a temperature or is showing multiple symptoms from that list of about 14 things. Right now the kids are coming to us because we're only open for them to use our facilities, our devices and our internet. But we will have somebody that's going to ride the bus with the bus driver and do, as Linda said, check temps and do it's a quick visual and that's it. Mainly to CYA for a lawsuit. Anything and everything we do before we get sued is going to save us money. And that's the main reason. And so, yeah, they can turn around and say, we don't think you need to do that. But when are they going to be there in the middle of that lawsuit? They're not, you know? So, I mean, we just had this discussion with the head of 2 different hospital medical groups. And they both said, well, it's not something that the CDC is requiring. And I asked that specific question and I said, if it's going to save us money in a lawsuit, would you do it for yourself? And they said, we sure would. So even though that they say don't, and they tell you that kids don't transmit it, I don't know what we can believe and what we can't believe anymore, but I'm just in a defensive mode right now, trying to save us money if we get sued.
I agree with Tim. I'm not a big believer that the temperature checks are going to tell us a lot of really ironclad information. You know, I don't know how much we can rely on them, but it is something we can do. And it's something that others are doing. And so I think, to me, it seems riskier to not do them if other districts are doing them.
My question to those who've already opened, we can do them, but I know from other schools that have already started and said, oh, they laugh because, well, my temperature is 85 today, so we're all dead and nobody's replacing the thermometer. And I just know the reality of that stuff, or the day that I can't, you know, I'm down to 15 kids, 11 kids on a bus, and I've had to pull my health aides, my aides somewhere else because we're so short staffed and there's so much to do at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm just curious if those of you opening, I get the liability, I understand that, but I know my staff and I know how hard it is going to try to do all those things and do it well. So I don't know if anybody's tried it and how it's going. If you are actually, I mean, I can sit here and say I'm going to do it, but I'm curious of the people who are doing it.
Just really quick. Hey, this is Dr. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Hey, Michelle.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, we're doing the agreements to be on site, you know, that the trust sent out. And a part of that is that they've signed that they're going to monitor and check for temperatures. So just so you know, that is a part of their responsibility as well. And we are not keeping logs. We're not doing temperature checks other than our part in our mitigation plan that is clearly posted on the website and given to the parents is that we will monitor. Every teacher has a thermometer. We do not have an on-site nurse or aide to help out. And of course you want to limit. So if the teacher is suspicious, we do have a place set aside in a very large open gym that would be for the student that we're concerned about. But it is the teacher's responsibility with a laser thermometer scanner to check the student if there is a concern. But other than that, it's the parent's responsibility, and they sign off on that before the parents even come into this, before the child comes into the school.
Okay.
We actually, excuse me, we actually have our parents have to send in a form that their child is okay. Right now, we only have the few coming in, but they do have to sign off every day.
Okay, let's move on to one more area. We could spend some more time on this, and we will. There is going to be another meeting that I want to follow up again with this one, see how we improved. Let me go to the next area, which is meeting instructional and other student needs. So the whole question is this: did your teachers receive PD on distance learning? Yes or no? Kind of, you're not sure,
Yes.
Shannon?
Ours did. In fact, we allotted over 2 weeks time for the teachers to come back ahead of time and get the professional development they needed to make this year really work for us. And it's been tremendous from all accounts I'm getting.
Could you repeat your question?
Oh, hold on. You want to say something, Tracy?
I said I saw a lot of thumbs up about teachers receiving professional development on online teaching and distance
Nice.
learning. That's really great. Do you know if it was through ASU or outside organizations, or any recommendations of where others could go and access that kind of training?
Ours was online things from some of the providers, and a lot of it was our own staff working, working in groups and working with each other. The only problem we found is that we really need to clone our IT guy, because he never has time to sit down all day long as he's running from, class to class, answering, technological questions, from teachers, because we switched all our teachers using the same platform, so that our parents only have to learn one, and kids only have to learn one set of commands. Only have to learn what one page looks like. In the spring, like lots of you, we were doing all kinds of things, and we had some very confused parents. Now over the summer, we got everything on one platform. So if they got multiple children, they have the same thing for all their kids, so they can continue.
Let me move on to one other question. If you feel you are meeting the needs of your special needs students, will you please let us give us some more information on that?
Our special needs populations are one of the more difficult groups to serve because of the variety and the depth and breadth of their needs during this period of digital learning. So we're curious to know if there's any magic solution out there, or if there's something you're doing that you think is really effective. If you worked more closely with parents, perhaps, to make sure that particular needs are being met. Any thoughts or advice on that?
I would like to, Tracy, in Kirkland, because I'm bringing the kids in morning and afternoon, half at a time, because it was really important to feed all of our kids in our community every day. So what we did was, for students who, especially the special education students who get any itinerant support, they actually come in during their off block to get those services, and then spend their whole 3-hour block in the classroom. So they're actually getting speech or OT or PT outside of their 3-hour block. And then they're just in the lab, which is the setup place for kids who need a place to be all day. So my special ed kids are probably getting the best services they've ever received. They're not missing anything.
That's great.
For us,
Yes.
we have about 6 self-contained children, which is pretty high for our population. These children have moved into more of the middle school setting. So we're bringing them in for about 3 hours a day, and social distancing and meeting their very special needs. And then they go home. We're going door to door, bus stop to bus stop with their meals to try to get those reimbursement back and those meals out. So then they ride home on the ride back home on the meals, on the meal bus and van.
Let me ask one other question before we go on to the next topic, which is connectivity. And this question is, are you in favor of requesting a state waiver for AZ merit this year? Want to show your hands? We need to. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So let's move on to the next topic, which is, and then we'll get into Chris. We'll move for this one a little bit quicker. Connectivity. Which is the biggest barrier to connectivity for your students and families? Is it access, affordability, access and affordability equally? Connectivity is not a problem in your area.
For us, it's access.
Access and affordability.
Okay.
It's both for us, access and affordability.
when it's access and affordability, is the issue because maybe a lot of you are using, or a lot of your families are using satellite service? No?
For us out here, we have one provider, and when that provider is sketchy, it doesn't work for the rest of us. And in
Is it a-
many places, a cell phone doesn't even work, so a hotspot's not intended to Zoom all day. You know, it's just
Right.
not.
We've set up a lot of hotspots. We've got actually 2 providers, and our library had a lot of hotspots that they're letting us use too for that. So for right now, we really haven't had any problems, although I lost my internet at the beginning of the meeting. So
We're finding that the hotspots are not reliable. They just don't work. You know, they're not
Because you're,
a live stream.
really, as far as I know, we haven't had any problems. I talked to them on Thursday. I haven't talked to them today, but so far they haven't had any problems with it.
so would it be fair to say that some of your students or families have satellite and cell service, or they don't, it's very limited to just maybe satellite? How many of you could say it was just satellite? If you could raise your hand. You're not sure?
I don't understand the question about satellite. I mean, we are, you know, our town still doesn't have broadband, you know, what's it called, fiber optic, you know, through it. And we are also putting hotspots on buses. I don't know how that's working yet. Gary, I don't know if you know, but, you know, we're going to be trying that. And I think it was 70% of our people had access, but there are those who don't. But what was the satellite issue, Kenny? I don't understand that.
So in Kirkland and Skull Valley, where I'm at, the biggest provider for us in a family's area is satellite. But even with the satellite, if you have the premium plans, because so many of the kids are on satellite service right now because they're doing distant learning, well, the satellite will slow down when there was a large number of folks using it to stream their classworks and stuff. So that makes it worse for us. And cell service is really sketchy. Pretty much it's down to one company, one brand name to provide cell service. It's even reasonable out where we're at. So that's what I was trying to find out. There's the only places that have hardwire that I know of are our schools, and they have that fast speed.
Do you mean CenturyLink or something like that for satellite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I answer your
Okay,
question,
I'm going to ask for clarification again. Kenny, are you saying that that satellite is the name of your broadband provider, or are you talking about actual satellite service from the sky?
It's actual satellite service from the sky.
That's what I thought.
There's several providers that use a satellite link, but most of everything out here is done by satellite or a cell phone, and neither one are really great when you have a lot of folks that are using it, especially the kids right now. So let's go on to the next one. We have successfully connected our students and families to devices and to the internet. Can you give me a number from 1 to 5 of how well you feel that you are accomplishing that?
5 is you feel like you've totally connected them. 1 is not even close.
3, 4, 3.
A lot of 3s out there.
Okay. So let's, how much more time we got? Let's let Chris come in and talk to us, because we're starting to get kind of towards the end of this. So what I wanted Chris to talk about is, Chris is our government relations for ASBA, and I've talked to them about advocating for the internet, and so I wanted Chris to share a little bit more about advocating for the internet in our rural and remote areas. To you, Chris.
Thanks, Kenny. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, Kenny and Tracy and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago now about some ways that Rural Alliance members could advocate towards the issue of rural broadband. And I think this is one area where we as an association have been active, but in terms of always supporting those issues when they come up, but not active in terms of rallying our membership around the specific issue. So obviously now the gaps that we have in connectivity are readily apparent, both in the metropolitan and rural areas, but it's a different kind of deal. Like in the metro areas, it tends to be more about affordability. Most of the metro areas blanketed with at least some form of broadband. Obviously in the rural areas, it's A, access to, because you have the infrastructure problems, and then B, if high speed is available, it tends to be more expensive. So, and so we sort of talked through a strategy that would allow Rural Alliance members, if they chose to become more active on the issue. We did see in the governor's executive order, he put out, I don't even know, there's been so many. The first one, when he put out the first executive order, he also released some COVID relief fund money, coronavirus relief fund money that put $40 million towards rural broadband, but obviously those projects are not going to come online instantaneously. So this is a bit of a long play, but it could be helpful for rural school districts and other entities to band together to say, here's what we're experiencing now. This is the reality of living in rural Arizona without access to quality broadband. And, if you have any hope of, improving the quality of online education statewide, making some of these 21st century things that everybody thinks are so great possible, you have to build the backbone of the infrastructure statewide. So really just wanted to, the thing we need in order to do that is good sort of tangible examples of what it's like when you don't have it, right? And so what we would really like to see from this group is, assuming you all want to pursue that, because it takes some time to sort of build up that capacity, but to get some good quality examples of how lack of the infrastructure and capacity impacts the ability to teach and learn. And then secondarily, we need some follow up after we make our sort of first pitch. It takes a lot of just basically monotonous follow up, like, hey, every time the issue comes up, like, hey, remember rural broadband, that's important, and you just have to keep beating on it. So it's like not a one-time thing, but it's a more of a strategic all the time thing. So Kenny's into it, I know that, but I don't know about the rest of you all. If we want to move forward in that area, what we probably propose doing is gathering some examples, some good sort of illustrative examples, and building a sort of narrative around that, and then start hitting the governor's office and the legislature and even maybe the Department of Ed, although they get it, but it's nice to have them. We'd probably just give them the ammunition so they could help us out, and just start sort of saying this out loud and saying, hey, did you know that online learning is great to keep kids safe, but X, or only so many in 10 households in Skull Valley have a quality internet connection or whatever it is. Sorry, I dropped my pencil. And then we just start, we just start painting the picture. And then hopefully the idea is that, when the legislature comes back in January and, and even in future years, that they're keeping this idea of rural Arizona top of mind. And then secondly, maybe, I have no promises, but maybe the governor's office has a bunch of money it's got to get rid of by December 30th. So, maybe in the dash to get rid of some cash, you might be inclined to throw some stuff the way of rural Arizona internet. So,
Say, Chris, I
Yeah.
just have one question. This is Tim. I just have one question, and it's only my second year in Arizona, so I'm just going to throw it out there because I just say it the way I see it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem we have in Arizona is that there's no definition of what rural is. And when we had all this money for rural police officers, SROs, and counselors, Mesa got 16 counselors. Mesa got 10 SROs. We didn't get any because we don't serve enough kids. So I think part of the problem in every conversation that we have about rural, and that's why when Jim Colby called me and said, you need to be part of this, I said, okay, because I think that's the big part of making people understand what rural actually is. Because,
Sure.
if you're not in the great state of Maricopa or you're not fortunate in be in Tucson, they don't really know what's out here. And I know when I go up north every weekend, the conversations when I talk to administrators up there are totally different than the conversations I have down here in Cochise County with administrators. So I mean, I don't know how we do it. I'm just saying that what you're saying is exactly right. It's just that the definition of rural, people need to understand what that means.
Right.
I hope that legislators, know the definition of rural. And I think as Chris and Kenny and I were just sort of hatching this idea in this conversation, we were talking about kind of a two-pronged approach that both prongs require information from people in rural communities, whether it's Naco or Fredonia at one end of the state or Fredonia up at the other end of the state, to say, what's actually happening in rural communities in Arizona, so that, defining what a rural community is, giving Chris ammunition essentially to do his lobbying work and magic at the policy level. But then also when you are gathering that information locally, it gives you those hard examples to be approaching your own legislators who hopefully do know what your community is like, and sharing with them that, some of the struggles that you're facing as well. So I think, when Chris was mentioning those examples, they'd really be used in two different ways. One, by him to provide examples as he's, taking this forward at the state level, but then also by each of you who may want to engage in this advocacy to say, we need this statewide, here's why, and here's what's happening right here in our community or right here in our legislative district. Let me give you an example.
One other thing I would like to add is, as all of you know, that there are 140 schools in Arizona that are considered rural and remote. So there is a large number of you out there, and you all have different experiences. So sending that information to Chris and loading him up with all this information is going to be very helpful. But also, Chris, do videos help out at all? Because a lot of the teachers are doing online and they're recording what's going back and forth like we are right now. But they're saving some of the recordings. Does that help you? Does that build your ammunition?
Yeah, I think anything we can get, because the the thing with legislators is, I mean, if you're talking just legislators, they are pretty receptive in the sense that they want to be able to have something that they can take home to their districts and be like, see what I got this for you guys. It can be a problem for us, frankly, in one instance where, I come into the office, I go into the office of some legislators, like, for example, there's a lot of conservative Republicans who represent the East Valley, right? And so I go to talk to them and they're basically like, well, all that statewide stuff sounds great, but as long as I take care of Mesa and Gilbert and Chandler, I'm good, because those are my constituents, right? But the same thing is true for rural legislators. They want to be able, they don't want to be told how bad of a job they're doing all the time, even though they're generally uniformly doing a not great job funding education equitably or adequately. But be that as it may, they're more than happy to stick a feather in their cap for something that they've gotten done for schools. So, there are times where you can leverage that and just be like, all you, 33% of you who represent 100%, like it's about a third to somebody's question, about a third of the legislature represents like really rural Arizona. There are some who represent like portions of the valley and also like Wickenburg, but Wickenburg like is almost not even counts as anything rural now because of its, pretty much a blob with Phoenix. It's just a little bit more spread out. But then there are about a third of them who are like, yeah, their districts are rural. So, or at least the majority of it is. And so what we would do is sort of leverage that and be like, I don't care about whether you think that, throwing $1 billion at education is a good idea, but we will, back you up if you support, this thing that'll be uniformly good for rural Arizona. And when you take it back and tell your school districts that you did that, they will be like, hey, yeah, that's actually a good idea. Or that was actually a good thing you did. Congratulations. And so that's sort of how we get that to the legislature. So your point is, yes, anything that we can do that encourages those legislators to think positively about work on an issue is good. So if it's illustrating, hey, here's what, and it can take two forms: illustrating what's wrong, which is sort of like the negative approach, being like, okay, we need, here's all stuff that's wrong, or illustrating what's good in the sense of like, hey, we were able to do this. Imagine what we could do with X more of that. So a good example, somebody popped up here. I'm going to go back in my chat. A good example is, I think it was Maryland, said something about everybody got Chromebooks.
Yes.
Everyone got some kind of device in the spring. Now waiting for new Chromebooks. That's good. You one-to-one, you got one-to-one device strategy in rural Arizona. That's great. But what happens when the kid takes the Chromebook home? Like, a Chromebook is great, but you got to have the internet in order to Chromebook on a Chromebook, right? So right. It's like, we did as much as we can, but we actually need to invest in this infrastructure so that the kids can do the things that we all want them to do, which is, learn and use technology and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's like a good example of, we are doing what we can out here. We got one-to-one devices. The kids love them at school. Then they take them home, or they're forced home by something. And we got nothing. So we're not resilient in that way. And that could be true of anything, right? Obviously it's COVID-19 right now, but like, what happens if, what could you do with summer school programs, or, you have to close your school because of a flood or a wildfire or something else. Like, you can make up all that stuff and not have to impact your families that much if you have the ability to do that. But if you don't have reliable infrastructure, you can't do that. And so those are the kinds of things we need to, we don't want to tie it specifically to COVID. We want to use COVID as the crisis that says, hey, remember all that good stuff you've been talking about technology in 21st century and, well, it's not working so hot right now. We got to make the investments. Otherwise, the next time we experience an issue, whatever it is, we won't have done anything. And that's bad.
Also, this isn't just an issue for schools. I mean, right now we're seeing it really magnified with students not being able to access their learning at home. But broadband for rural and remote Arizona is not just good for schools and kids, it's good for business as well, right? In other parts of the community. And so you have natural allies in your healthcare for these kinds of things. And I think, school board members as community leaders are especially well suited to kind of bring that forward because many of you are involved in other kinds of businesses or organizations. And so not only how that can impact and help your schools, but how that access will impact and help other parts of your community as well. So that's a powerful reason. This is not just about schools. It's really important for schools, but it's a bigger issue than that really could be a win for rural legislators to bring home to their constituents.
Like we're talking
Chris,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, sorry.
I could add to that in that, for instance, today we have a local mom and pop, AZ AirNet, that they're amazing. But, that's what we've got out in Congress. And today, they had an issue. So, basically all of our online distance learners, we had no access. They went down today. So we had to do an all school call to everybody to let them know, hey, everybody that's on AZ AirNet, which is pretty much the provider, no, there's no school today for them up to a certain point if they can't get it resolved. So definitely, I mean, we've got examples galore in Congress about the need for this type of stuff.
So several of you are asking about what kind of a strategy we can use to advocate for broadband. So that's what I'm hoping this meeting is a part of, in that suggesting the strategy. My thoughts are that we start archiving at our individual schools some issues that we're having with what we're already doing with online classes. Then also, and forwarding that information to Chris. And then also, I would think maybe letters of information about what's going on. I don't know. Go ahead, Karen.
We don't want to archive them just for January. We need to, save it for then, but you need to send it to them right now. They're all reading their Arizona Ledge addresses. So send it to them as you hear about it. So if they get an email a day from some rural school in their district relating some issue or how they're coping with an issue, how they've gone out of their above and beyond to cope with an issue, that will have a bigger impact. So they'll go back in January having heard from all of us lots of times about issues. And a great way to do that is we can't use our kids for political things, but we ask our kids to write letters to the president, letters to their legislatures in class as an exercise. If you've got some of these issues, maybe ask the kids, because they're all better than we are, to make little videos. And stuff directly from kids has a big impact on those legislators. When it's a kid explaining his problems on dealing with this, especially some older kids that could do that, as opposed to just hearing from school board members. It makes a big difference when it's when it's students that contact them with an issue. So.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things here too is we're using sort of the pandemic as a linchpin is the wrong word, as a catalyst for starting this discussion. But really it is because that highlights the issues, but really it's about, and this is important because the one thing we don't want to do is, well, this will all go away when the kids go back to school, so get them back in school. But there are other things, right, that, when in the future, when, we'd like to be able to utilize things like, bringing whatever it is, AP physics to high school kids in wherever, or things like that. None of that's possible without building this up. So it's really like it points to the future. These are the issues we're having. This is why we need to fix them. And it's not just related to, distance learning because of COVID. It's related to, doing right by the kids in rural Arizona for the next 20 years.
Because this is, as far as everybody knows, and we're going to be doing more distance learning and using the use of the computers. So let's work on trying to get a better system worked out. You had something to say, Tracy?
Yeah, I do. I think Jim Colby is on the line and he had something he wanted to share.
Good evening. I'm sorry I can't get on the Zoom thing. I'm out in the woods by Flagstaff, but I think letters and those things are fine. But what? God, it's now been 2 years now since we had Red for Ed Day. Maybe we need a bunch of people from rural places to come to this legislature when they meet and get some publicity. That's what you need. Is you need publicity. It's not a matter of just sending a letter here and there. You need to get somebody's attention with a group of people. And as long as we're online, most schools virtually teaching, we should be able to get some representation from schools to do that.
Thanks, Jim. So I think for Chris Cotterman, can you give us maybe some next steps? Is there a time when you'd like folks to email you with examples and what would the next step be on this?
And Tracy, can I jump in just for 1 second before Chris does that? I think all this is great, but I think what might be helpful, especially in addition for those people not on the call that maybe are in the Alliance, is to get some guidance from Chris that says, like here's what we're looking for, because I think a lot of people don't even know what to, Chris, you got it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks, Linda. I was thinking as you were talking about a thing we might do is send out sort of a template to all the Rural Alliance members and say, hey, these are the kinds of stories that we're looking for. And these are the kinds of examples that are helpful. And then even, we can put Lee on this too, even have sort of a, tutorial on how to go find your members and stuff like that. And then sort of a skeletonized version of what you can say and then send it to this person and then copy, you can copy advocacy at AZSBA and then we get it, or you can just send it to us directly if you just want to tell us what the story is, a couple of different ways. And then that way we can sort of start collecting these things and you all can start moving stuff out in the world. And then as we get more information, we'll build our efforts around who's participating. So then when somebody sends an email, we can reach out and say, hey, thanks for, doing that. Do you want to be more involved in this stuff? And then go from there.
Hey, Chris, am I correct that there is an item on the draft political agenda that's related to this?
There is, I believe.
I bring that up to say that, it's really important for members of the Rural Alliance and rural school districts to participate in that delegate process, to really affirm that this is a priority for rural Arizona, so that, that political agenda is basically our marching orders in terms of how we pursue items at the legislature. And so the more voice rural districts are providing in a venue like the Delegate Assembly, the more strength and ammunition we have behind those kinds of issues and items in the political agenda.
Yeah, and I think those of you who were at Rural Advocacy Day remember that we said in there that even though most of the students in the state are in Maricopa and Pima counties. Most of the membership of ASBA is not. So
Yes.
to the extent that, because we have we're one district, one vote. So, in that sense, Kirkland has the same say as Mesa does. And then if you get enough people at the delegate assembly, then you can drive the agenda.
So what, Kristen, then your office will work on a template that can be sent out to the Alliance members to begin to advocate for this connectivity. And then we also need to share stories with you, or start collecting our stories like Stephanie Miller was talking about, and start sharing those things with the ASBA.
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll send out, to Linda's point, we'll send out a template sort of saying, or template or document saying what we're looking for, and if you want to start communicating with your legislator, here's how to find them and the kinds of things you can send them, and then CC us and or just send us what you come up with, and we'll start compiling it, and then we'll use those issues to make a more formal campaign out of it. And to Tracy's point, our draft political agenda includes a statement. It's in the specific to COVID-19 response right now, but it says technology modernization and accessibility will ensure students have the technology and equipment to use during times like these with the current COVID-19 pandemic. That's the one that the committee came up with. We'll probably end up changing it a little bit at delegate assembly, but that's the plank in the platform, I guess, for technology.
Okay.
So yeah, so you all can probably, well, I have my government relations team meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll talk about that. But I would suspect that by the end of the week or early next week, we could have something to show you, Kenny, to send out to the Rural Alliance people, or membership, I should say.
So I just want to go ahead and close this up, and I thank you, Chris, for the information and all of you participating in all of this. It's been a great discussion. And I know that all of us are going through these little trials of learning how to work with technology and making it work in our own situations. But I believe this is something that we need to jump on the bandwagon and move forward with it. And I love to hear some more comments from you. And you can do that by sending an email to me, Rural Alliance at, what is it, Tracy?
azsba.org.
And reference the Rural Alliance, and we'll start putting these things together and move forward. The last thing I want to say is I plan to do another meeting as a follow-up to what we're doing right now. But I believe I'm going to wait a little while longer to have some more conversation with Chris and Tracy on this connectivity issue, and then also wait and see what other feedback I get from you folks that are part of the Alliance or working towards becoming an Alliance member. We certainly want to hear from everybody so that we can have a good program going forward. So I look forward to hearing from you. I just want to say my part. I appreciate everyone that's here, and I look forward to hearing more from all of you on all this information that we've shared today. Tracy?
Just thanks to everyone for being here. Thank you, Kenny. Thanks, Chris, for being here. And like Chris said, you can expect to hear from us through Rural Alliance about this advocacy plan within the next couple of weeks. I think, we are more powerful together. So thanks for being a part of this.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.